Am I the asshole? My kid approached a stranger's dog in our front yard. I've 35M, owned my house for 10 years and I've got a grass yard in my front yard. My 20-month-old son loves to play outside. We have a patio with a brick fence that leads to our yard. I opened the door and in he bolts, like he does every day. He looks for his tennis and golf balls in the grass. I'm a few yards behind him and he turns the corner and briefly disappears behind the fence. As I get to the fence line, next thing I hear is barking and a lady is yelling at me to keep my son away from her, what looked like a German shepherd to me. I chase down my son immediately as her dog is in my yard. I tell her that this is my house and my yard. Get your dog out of here. She starts telling me that I shouldn't let my son come toward her dog. I tell this lady to get out of here. I tell her to never let her dog step foot on my property again. She says I was an irresponsible parent. Am I the asshole? Info. Was the dog on a leash and just walking on the edge of your grass? If this was the case and your son came unexpectedly running over and startled the dog but the lady kept the dog under control, you're the asshole for letting a toddler go charging around out of your sight. Small children can make animals nervous because of their sudden jerky movements, high-pitched voices, and general lack of common sense. If your kid had ran out of your sight and then ran on the sidewalk in front of a cyclist and got hit, would you be blaming the cyclist? Your son did get away from you. What if he'd run in the street with a car coming? The dog shouldn't have been in your yard. I opened the door and in he bolts, like he does every day. This is %100 on you. If you can't manage him better, there could be some ugly, unforeseen consequences. Especially since he turns the corner and briefly disappears behind the fence. Dog lady should have had her dog on a leash, not in your yard at all. You are the asshole unless she was actually in your yard and not standing on the sidewalk with a dog on a 4-foot leash. You're being a little evasive about the details on that. Several yards, according to another comment. Was it 6 female, 12 female, something else? Where was the dog and where was the owner? Info. Was the dog on a leash? You cannot let your kid bolt like he does every day. There are so many reasons why. Your kid should also be taught not to run towards a dog. That's on you. The person with the dog may have been startled to see a kid rushing towards their dog. I would be. My dog is always leashed, but a kid bolting at us would be worrying for all involved. I'm unsure if the dog was leashed. If it was, this person didn't do anything wrong but just exist while you let your kid bolt out the door towards danger. Info. Are you sure the dog was on your property to begin with? Your son rounded a corner out of your sight. Is it possible he first approached the dog who was on the sidewalk, which then lured the dog into stepping foot into your yard? Am I the asshole for not getting my girlfriend food after she told me not to? Hi all, Mike, 26M, girlfriend, 23F, and I have been together for about a year and a half. It's been mostly good, but it does seem like at times she has very odd expectations. This morning I was going out for breakfast and texted her to ask if she wanted me to get her breakfast and she said no. I asked her if she was sure and she assured me that she didn't want one. Come a few hours later she calls me and says, "You know, it really didn't sit right with me that you didn't get me food this morning. If you were more thoughtful you would have showed up to my door and surprised me with breakfast." Mind you, we live about 10 minutes from one another, so I had zero problem bringing her food, but I asked her twice if she wanted it and she said no. Do I just not understand women? She's legitimately so pissed and thinks if I liked her more, I would have brought her food anyways. I sometimes think she obsesses over TikTok couples who stage every interaction they ever have, so she expects some fantasy land relationship between her and I. Too long did not read. I offered to buy my girlfriend breakfast, but after she told me she didn't want anything multiple times, I ended up not doing so. Later she expressed to me that I was wrong for not getting her anything anyways. Not the asshole. This is a mind game, and it's not fair at all to you. When someone clearly communicates that they don't want something, it is completely unreasonable for them to expect you to somehow know that they were lying and really did want the thing. For the record, I'm a woman, and I think only idiots play idiot games like this. Not the asshole. Your girlfriend needs to say what she means and mean what she says. If you ask her if she wants food and she declines and says no, it's safe to assume she does not want food. She has a strange vision of what a fantasy relationship is. A surprise breakfast taco is in no way a romantic gesture. You know, it didn't really sit right with me that you were dishonest with me this morning. If you were more honest and thoughtful with me, you would have accepted my offer of breakfast and not turned it into some sort of test. Not the asshole. Not the asshole, obviously. You can tell her that you have respect for her, so you listen to what she says. Some questions for you to think about. Does she have a history of poor communication skills? Does she not understand that the vast majority of what is on social media is stage? Do you really want to be with someone who fritters their time away caring what other people are doing? Not the asshole she is. Did you point out to her that she specifically said no not only once, but twice? What a fucking asshole, you're not Kreskin. You took her at her own word and she's blaming you for listening to her, for not ignoring her? Do you see how fucked up that is? No means yes, when she feels like it. No. No means no, and she's an utter asshole for implying that she doesn't mean what she says. That's a no-win situation, for anyone. Your girlfriend really needs to learn how to adult. And that includes communicating clearly. You're not the asshole, and she needs to understand that TikTok isn't real life. Maybe you can make a TikTok showing how dumb her view is. Am I the asshole for not showing up to my friend at the hospital because I needed to babysit? I, 18M, was tasked by my mom and dad to babysit my little sister, 13F, for a couple hours because they wanted to go to a restaurant together. After they left, everything was going fine until one of my friends called me and said that one of my other friends got seriously injured and got sent to the hospital. He said that him and some other friends should go visit him for emotional support. I told him I couldn't because I needed to babysit my sister and I didn't want to leave my sister alone, especially not for long periods of time. My friends told me that I was being really ridiculous and immature. They thought my sister was old enough to be able to stay home by herself anyway. I still didn't want to leave her alone though, so I still decided that I would stay home because if my parents found out that I had left my sister alone, they'd be furious. Now my friends are disappointed in me and saying that I care more about my mom and dad not getting mad at me than my friend's health and that I didn't care about our friendship. From now on, the friend that was in hospital definitely doesn't look at me the way he used to anymore because of what I did. Am I the asshole? Not the asshole. Your friends are ridiculous. If injured friend was just being admitted, you wouldn't be able to see them anyway. Your friends just wanted a chance to be all dramatic. Usually the last thing someone in the hospital needs is visitors, outside one or two very close competent adults, unless they are in there for a really long time and boredom becomes a factor. Were they afraid friend would be discharged before the couple hours between the call and your arrival? It's stupid. Ignore them. Not the asshole. You were basically at work. Did everyone just leave work immediately? Also, realistically, if it were that much of an emergency, they wouldn't be letting a bunch of non-related teenagers in there for emotional support. Most people are usually in the ER for hours, unless they are rushed to surgery or ICU or something. You're better off visiting him the next day when not everyone else was there. You were hired to babysit. Even if the pay rate was zero, you can't just leave your sister. If your sister is cognitively typical, then they are right. It's weird to need you to babysit a 13-year-old. I was babysitting at that age. But it's not your place to just leave your sister. Seems like the dude was okay, not actively dying. There is no requirement to rush to the hospital the minute somebody is admitted. In fact, the first hours are often a bad time to visit, as the patient is in the middle of treatment. You could have gone later in the day or the next day. Your friends are the immature ones, thinking you should go back on your promise to your parents in order to fulfill their vision of friendship. I do think that a 13-year-old can be alone in the home for a few hours, depending on the kid, but since you said you'd stay home and watch her, you did the right thing by sticking to that. Not the asshole. Not the asshole. You had a pre-existing responsibility that you accepted, and unfortunately this is one of life's great challenges. You can't be in two places at one time. You are more than able to see your friend after, and if they are a real friend, they will understand and why you couldn't be there in the first hour. All the best to your friend, and I hope they get a speedy recovery. Not the asshole for totally different reasons. Your friend is in the hospital and there is nothing you and your friends can do other than take up space in the waiting room. If their family is there, ask if there are things you can do while the friend is there. It's not a soap opera. Emotional support is great, but your friend is where they need to be. You can always check in tomorrow or the next day after they are probably in a better place. On the reasons below, yes, you made a commitment, and it's your sister. Your friends can STFU. Drama queens. Okay, it's not normal to visit friends in the hospital within hours of their arrival to the ER. Normally friends wouldn't visit until the next day at earliest, and the hospital visit only includes one night. It's reasonable to visit the person once they're home instead. If the person was otherwise alone, a friend would wait with them when they're being admitted, but generally not a whole group. So was your friend out of the hospital the next day, and they were just being melodramatic about the whole thing? Your friends are the ones being ridiculous and immature here. Not the asshole. Am I the asshole for not keeping up the family tradition? Mike, 25M, wife, 24F. Gave birth to our son 2 weeks ago. My family has had the tradition of naming the child months of the year for 5 generations on my mom's side. My name is December. I've shortened it to Dec, hoping people will think it's short for Declan or something normal. My brothers are called August. Not so common in the UK. In July. Poor guy. Nothing you can do about that one. And my sisters are called April, June and May. Not so bad. My wife and I called our son Tobias. We kept the name a secret until after he was born and we had signed the birth certificate so it couldn't be changed. When we told my parents a week ago, they were most certainly not happy. Even though my dad has the nice normal name of Alex, he liked the tradition. My sister, June, named her daughter March to keep with the tradition, so my parents expected me to do the same. My mum continually said that we should call the baby September for a girl and October for a boy throughout the pregnancy. I never outright said I wasn't going to because I know what lengths they would go to make sure my baby would have a month as a name. My brothers were on board when we told them, understanding growing up with the teasing. My parents left after saying we were disrespecting my heritage by not following the tradition. I told them I wasn't going to name my child a ridiculous name because some old, long-dead, crazy man decided months of the year would be good names, and just because my mum was stupid enough to join him in his madness, didn't mean I had to. They stormed out and haven't spoken to me since. My sisters have said I should have just named him a month to keep the peace, and I'm an asshole for insulting my mum and her family. I feel as though I'm just looking out for what's best for my son. My family seems to think my wife has brainwashed me into calling him something normal even though I have never made it a secret that I hate my name. So am I the asshole? My parents left after saying we were disrespecting my heritage by not following the tradition. Not the asshole. Traditions like this deserve to be broken. Your dead ancestors really do not give two shits what you call your kids and are incapable of any disrespect from you. Your parents are the only ones offended, and it's not your responsibility to keep the peace. It's theirs to respect your decision and try to move past it and have a functioning relationship with you. Good for you for doing this, by the way. Not the asshole, but you could have tried a different argument. You married your wife. She has a strong tradition of not naming any family member, even pets, to the months of the year, and you too indeed followed the family tradition, just not yours. Not the asshole. The boy options apart from August, and that makes me think of Augustus Gloop from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, are weak. You'd go through life hating the name, and he would probably go through life getting bullied. Even as a middle name, I don't see why you should be bullied into something you don't want. But let me get this straight, it isn't even related to the month the child was born, given your mum wanted September for a girl and October for a boy? April, May and June are okay for girls, but only if the parents actually like the names. But the whole thing seems very random and kind of like a tradition that needs to just fade out. Your son will thank you later and your mother will get over it eventually. Not the asshole. It is your child. My family has a naming tradition, and I happen to be named after a man that beat his wife and child to the point they were hospitalized. Family traditions are not always a good thing. Edit. I was that child, and obviously I was named after my dad. Not the asshole. Your kid, your choice in names. Also, 1. It's not like you were breaking tradition by not naming him after a beloved, deceased relative. You'd still not be the awe if you did break that tradition. 2. With only 12 months and this going on for 5 generations, that must mean that there are so many duplicate names for different family members. There is nothing wrong with that, but if it were me I would not want my child to be one of the 10, or whatever, people named after a particular month. Not the asshole. One of my favorite comedians, Ralphie May, named his April and August, since those were the months they were born in, and since his last name was May, it kind of worked out. Rip Ralphie. You can name your child whatever you want, and your family has no say-so in the matter. You chose a strong classic name for your son, one that won't get him bullied or picked on as he goes through life. If your family doesn't understand that, that's their problem, not yours.